James LaLones. Thank you for sitting down and doing this with me, man. Um,
Episode
gonna,
2, baby.
episode 2. Welcome, welcome. I don't know how many people watched the first one or how many people are going to watch, but this is very fun, and I hope you enjoy it. Before I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but before we get into that, I want to kind of unpack something that I thought about last week. So for the retail department, we had Steve Ambrosio on. I think it was Thursday, and he just kind of talked for 30 minutes about his mindset and about power in general and his place there. And not everybody, like I said, it was a retail training. Not everybody was able to see that. So I think there's some gems that a lot of people missed. And I couldn't possibly get to all of them, but one of the big takeaways, I think the biggest takeaway for me, and I would think a lot of people who listened to it, was that he was like, man, yeah, like people hit me up all the time. Like Steve Ambrosio, like the best in the business. Like you
Mhm,
can't even talk about his accolades because it's just ridiculous. He's just
mhm.
number one in like everything. Um, he's like, man, people hit me up all the time. They're like, dude, what's your script? Like, you gotta hit me. Like, dude, like, what do you like? Come on, like, what's your game?
Right.
What's your thing? And he was like, dude, I use the same scripts that you use, and she uses, and she uses, and they use. I use the same exact scripts. Um,
Mhm.
I'm doing the same thing that you're doing. I'm going to a store. I'm talking to humans. I'm getting rejected. Um, and something that's subtle, it's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, of course. But for someone like me, and I think a lot of us, you see like that person's name at the top of every leaderboard, and you're just like, okay, they have to be like a god, right? They have to be doing something that is otherworldly or mystic. And nope, no, they
Yeah.
just they work their ass off. And he said it. He was like, the only thing that sets me apart is like, yeah, I'm well scripted and I have a really strong process, but it's like I know for a fact I pitch more people than you do any day.
Mhm.
It has
Yeah.
nothing,
It's
he's
out he's outworking everybody.
yes, yeah. And while he's doing the right things, he's also doing those things more than anybody else. Which
Mhm.
leads to those numbers. And so I wanted to open that up, obviously, so people can just sort of mull that over. But it also brings me into how I met you. And I have nothing impressive with my numbers. I started in January, so I've been struggling and you know have yet to do anything super impressive like on a leaderboard as of yet. So starting out, you hear all these names, and I had Michael Boyland on yesterday, and he's a good buddy of mine. He probably wouldn't say that, but I say that. I tell people that we're friends. And so you hear these names, you get out of training, and you're like, yeah, you definitely get to know Michael Boyland, get to know Mackenzie, get to know Miriam, get to know James LaLone. And James LaLone, that name came up several times, and I was like, okay, I want to pick this guy's brain. And then again, same thing. You see like your numbers in terms of the office, like just like ridiculously, it's like everybody, and then like all the way up here, like James LaLone, James LaLone, James LaLone. Um, and so I was like, okay, this guy must be crazy. He must be insane. Like, who is this? Like, who is this guy?
Right.
And then my first day going to a Sam's Club, I go out with you and Christian Carpenter, another killer in the department, and I follow you around. And within 5 minutes, I'm just like, holy shit, he's not a robot. He's not. He's not doing it. He's not doing anything different. He's just a goofball. He is like the cheesiest guy alive. You literally like are doing like a dance with your body as you're talking to homeowners, like hello, uh,
Dude,
happy Wednesday, man.
I remember this conversation. It was like we were walking over towards the pharmacy and I did some stupid joke to a homeowner, and you just looked at me and you were like, "Dude, you are a cheese ball."
Yeah,
And and I was like, "That you're exactly right."
that was me trying to process it. That was the realization turning in my head. I was like, oh my god, this guy he doesn't do any like, there's no magic. There's no secret formula. He's just incredibly energetic. He's very well scripted, so, like, he clearly works hard to get a good process, and he's just a goofball. Like, I was like it's almost like, and you would never I know you would never want anyone to be intimidated by you, but it's like, like, this is what I'm trying to get at. You see, like, these accolades or these statistics, and you kinda get intimidated. You're like, "This person is different." And you think that difference is something otherworldly, like I was saying, but then seeing it, you're like, "Wait a second. Okay. I'm not intimidated anymore. This is just a goofy guy who is just doing the job really well, and he's doing it constantly." And I've said it to you before, like, something that sets you apart is you just keep going. You don't
Yeah,
stop.
and, one, difference I wanna point out is, like, Ambrosio, he obviously like he said, he tries to talk to more people than anyone else in the whole business. But there's also a separate part of that where he gives, and this is something I aspire myself, is to give 100% best effort with each homeowner. So like there's a lot of people who like at the end of the day, they'll be like, "Oh man, I pitched everybody. I pitched everyone in the store. It was just a bad day. It just didn't go my way," you know? And sure, while like everybody has those days, you have to ask yourself, like, I believe you that you pitched everybody, and that's like sure a feat in itself, to like truly pitch everyone in the store. But were you giving your best effort and your best personality skills and your best utilizing all of your strengths and working on your weaknesses like day in and day out? um, and like with each and every homeowner, are you like leveraging any rapport that you can build with them? Like are you is your mind like constantly working on like how can like appointments and estimates, like what can I do to get that next appointment? Or is it just like, oh, here comes another homeowner, let me say the words, go like going through the motions,
Mm,
so I just think that's a good difference to point out, is that there's a difference between just pitching everybody and pitching everybody, like if that makes any sense. So
that is so well put, man. And I, like a lot of people, yeah, I would get caught in those traps. And I would, at the end of the day, I would think, man, like I had great energy. I, I'm sure my process isn't perfect, but like I was my work ethic, like it was great. And I pitched a lot of people. I never stopped talking to people. And I was happy and I was energetic. And, like, not coming up with excuses, but just like, like, why didn't this work? Like, why did I have a bad day? And then I go, okay, yeah, people have bad days. And then, like, I'd have three more after that where I felt the same after each day. And then you gotta just look at yourself and go, okay, I'm probably wrong then.
mm,
Then
mm,
there's something probably simple and much deeper that I'm not doing, or that my mindset isn't correct about. and and figuring that out, it's doesn't make it easy, but yeah, you got to start. You put it so well. You got to start asking yourself, it's like, are you actually able to, like Hunter Spivey is very well known for this. He's like, "Yep, I just every door I knock on, it's like it's the first
mhm,
or last door that I knock on." And so you have the
mhm,
same exact energy. It doesn't matter if you got three in a row the past three houses, or you just got like three doors slammed in your face. Like you bring the same exact thing to every homeowner, every house. Um, and it's tough. Like that's
yeah.
it's simple and it's very difficult. Um, but enough about power. No one cares about that stupid place. Um, just kidding, Bruce, who's not listening to this. Um, so tell me,
That's a
man,
good one.
I got a couple questions for you. Let's learn about James LaLone. I would love to hear a story that you have about where you were incredibly embarrassed. I know we're just like totally shifting gears here, but I wanna open you up, man.
I appreciate it. I'm pretty much an open book, when it comes to most things. And I did, this story when you sent me these questions just like a couple hours ago, and this one took me the longest to think of because most
Hmm.
of these like embarrassing stories, I try to like push them out of my mind as much as I can. I don't know if there's anyone else like me that I will literally wake up in the middle of the night and think of an embarrassing moment that happened like 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And I don't know, maybe that's just me, but like that will like haunt me. So,
Do you do
but
the
I do have a
cringe?
couple. What's that?
You do the cringe, like, you have memories that literally make you just go like, "Ah,
Yeah,
ah,
yes,
ah."
yes, yes. Like a physical and audible cringe when I think of certain things. So yes. Um, but so I have two, and the first one is in the setting of high school, and my girlfriend at the time, her family had like a really nice house with like a pool and like a finished basement and like a huge kitchen, all this stuff, and they went on vacation for 2 weeks, and they asked me if I could house sit for them. Okay. Um, And of course I was like, yeah, like I'll house at your house. Your house is fucking sweet. Um, so so I took on the task, and of course I was probably maybe 17, maybe 18 years old at the time. And all of my friends were all like, dude, like you got an open house, bro.
Let's
And
study, dude.
I would
Have a study party, dude.
I didn't throw any, like, big parties or anything, but I did have, friends come over, like, pretty often, and, of course, we were drinking, like, throughout the whole 2 weeks that they were gone, um, and what we did is we saved every bottle and every can, and at the end of the 2 weeks, we put it all on the kitchen counter, and it was just like, bottles of vodka and like empty like, Bud Light cans and all this stuff. And of course, being 17-year-olds, we were like, yo, look at all this alcohol we just, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what
We're
I'm
the
saying?
shit.
So, yeah. So I took a picture of it and I posted it on my private Twitter account. If you guys remember what those are, the PT private Twitter.
Hmm.
Um, But long story short is that my girlfriend's little brother somehow saw the picture and then sent it to his mom.
Oh, the shit.
So so like I go over to my girlfriend's house one day, and my girlfriend's mom is just like sitting at the counter, and she sees me come in and she just like pulls up a picture. It's like, James, how did this happen? Please explain to me. And I was just like, my face just went like flush red. I was like, oh shit, I'm caught. And I had to explain to her like I didn't throw any ragers, okay? It was just
Mm.
like my friends. And anyway, she was just like disgusted with me at the time, and it's funny because I actually still talk to her, my girlfriend's mom,
Mm.
ex-girlfriend's mom.
You still
Um,
have that picture?
I do still have that picture. I think I do. Actually, it was on my old phone. I might have to like go back. Oh, probably still have it on Snapchat. I could find it, but so that was definitely a pretty embarrassing moment for me. Um, Another embarrassing story I'll tell, and there wasn't really a moment for this, but um, I used a baby bottle until I was probably like
21 last year.
11 or 12.
Really?
Uh, yes, yeah.
Why?
So,
What were your parents doing?
okay. So the backstory on that is like, first of all, I don't know why. Like going back into my 11 or 12, like 10 to 11, 12-year old brain, like don't know why, but I just would ask my mom. I'd be like,
That's middle school.
Yeah, and it wasn't like at that point, it wasn't like every day or like consistently. It was just like it was just like every once in a while. I don't know why, Dylan. I don't know why. Every once in a while, I just had this like craving to like have a baby bottle of warm milk. Okay, so I can't really explain myself there. I really can't explain myself. But what's funny is that my dad hated it. My dad, like my mom would like oblige me and she would be like, okay, like just this once, and then my dad would come home and like see the baby bottle out. James, you're you're 11. What is this? You need to grow up, son, or something like that, And so I just remember as like 10 or 11-year old. I don't think I made it to 12. I think it was like 10 or 11. And my dad was just like getting actually upset with me for using a baby bottle.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
I would be
yeah, and
I would
I
be
know.
upset.
If you put yourself in a father's shoes, it's like you come home and see or your 11-year-old son chilling with a baby bottle of warm milk. It's like get that shit out of here. Oh man.
Mama,
So
she was all about it.
what's that?
Mama LaLone, she was just all about it. She didn't see anything wrong with that.
I mean, she was just like I was a mama's boy, so like she would just oblige if I nagged her enough about it.
So this
Um,
was okay, so this was on you. This was your
this is
preference,
definitely
your
on me.
choice. Okay.
This was that's what I'm saying. It was like a craving. Like I can't
Hmm.
describe why at all, but it was just like a craving that I got. Maybe that goes back to like human, like I don't know, instinct for like for some reason.
I'm gonna ask you a
But yeah,
question.
man.
I want you to be honest. Do you still have a baby bottle, James?
No,
You can
no,
tell me.
I swear to God,
In the
no,
spirit of opening up to your power friends.
no.
Okay.
Haven't done that. I haven't been on that drug since what year was that? 2009 or something? 2008? Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad you told me that. I will never use that against you.
Please don't.
That's awesome, man. Um, 2 very good stories. One of them I liked way more than the other than the first. Um, a weird question, not a weird question, but something I like to ask people that really kinda sets them apart. It can kinda get, not controversial, but it's where you basically go against the grain. What's something, James, that a lot of people like, or like everybody loves, that you think is totally overrated?
I'm gonna cheat again. I also have 2 things for this, but this one, they kinda go hand in hand pretty well. So first of all, I'll say college in general,
Mm,
I think is overrated, for a lot of different reasons, and first, I mean, I was a college dropout, so I'm a little biased,
me too.
just
Me
yeah.
too.
Hey, there we go, there we go. But just for the obvious reasons, what I would say obvious is that like there's some people that would make more money if they started doing their own thing instead of going to college. For instance, like someone who's really good with like woodworking, could become a carpenter and go to trade school and get a paid apprenticeship. But instead, his parents like push him to go to college, and he has comes out with 50 grand in debt and like a business degree that he's not passionate about. So that first and foremost is just like like I don't think it's as valuable as a lot of people think it is, and reasons for that, I mean, like the culture of college now is just like party, party, party all day, every day. Of course, it depends on which college you go to, and there's some more than others, but there's so many 4-year universities now. Like any public university, like literally any public university, is pretty much like all revolved around like the party atmosphere, and like you're either in or you're out. With like frats and sororities and all that. And I think all that in general is overrated. And I mean, I could go into a few reasons why, but myself, like I dropped out of college, and I say it was like the best decision of my life. Because I started to actually learn life skills of like how to be independent, how to be on my own, how to like getting a job that's like just like I mean, when I first dropped out of college, I just had like a 10 to 6 type of thing. Um, and I was working like 6 days a week, and like that taught me way more than college did, in my opinion. Um, and of course, coming to power, like completely changed my life, and that would never have happened if I didn't drop out. Um, and the second part to the question,
For
or sorry,
just I want to hear what the second part is, but I want to just like respond to what you just said.
unpack, yeah.
Um, yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. It's kind of difficult to get into. It's weird because like as a college dropout, you are biased, but kind of in a good and a bad way. So it's like, yeah, I'm biased because this system that is supposed to be like the way didn't work for me. But at the same time, it's like I know that I'm proof that it didn't work for me. And
Hmm.
and that's not to eliminate the factor of like, yeah, I could have worked harder. I could have, had more grit and stuck with it. I couldn't agree more with you, and I've heard some good arguments for both sides. But uh, like I said, like I also dropped out of college, and it was for reasons different than you. For me, it was really just because I never should have gone in the first place, man. I I went to college because it's what you do. You know,
Hmm.
I finished high school. I never really had a direction or like defined values. I didn't really take care of myself at all until I was 23. I was talking to Michael Boyland about that yesterday. Like he is 23, and that's the age that I started taking care of myself. I'm 26 now, and um, yeah, I finished high school, and someone was like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to college." "Well, why?" "Well, because that's what you do after high school. You go to college." "Well, what do you want to? Why are you going to college? What do you want to do?" "I don't fucking know."
Yeah.
I just didn't want to seem like a loser. At that time in my head, and I think a lot of people's heads, like the norm is you go to college, otherwise you're kind of a loser, and
Hmm.
that really stuck with me. And so I'm going through the years, and no, I'm not applying myself. I'm not working my ass off. I'm not trying hard because, and I'm not really defending it, but it's like I hated it. I hated sitting in a classroom. I hate school. Like I just hate it. I hate
Hmm.
going to a classroom
Me
and
too.
just sitting at a desk and like watching a professor give some sort of lecture. And I've had phenomenal professors, and I've had classes I really enjoyed, but just that in general, it's like you take um, whatever.
Especially the first, like, 2 years where it's all, like, gen ed courses of, like,
Yeah.
things that you're not even, like, remotely, passionate about, and it's just, like, the homework is all busy work, it's,
Hmm.
like, stuff that literally just to fill your hours of, like, up with time and, like, make you I mean, like, history classes, for example, it's literally you just memorize everything, and then you vomit it onto the page, onto the
Yeah.
test, and then you forget it all. Like, I don't remember most things from my history class, or even like my statistics class, or anything like that. Um, so yeah, so completely agree with you there.
I would bet that you don't remember the vast majority of things that you learned in a college classroom. Um, and I mean, it has to be said, this is all very harsh. Like, if you are in the world of academia and like you care about the education of people, like that's phenomenal. And I have
Hmm.
I have friends who, um, like I know people with kids, and they work their asses off, and they want to get them into a good school because they really want to get into that good school, and they know what they want to do there. It's like that's
Hmm.
amazing. Yeah, that's
Yep.
phenomenal. Like, do that. Like, that's what it should be for. Like,
Agreed.
an
Agreed.
organized system of accountable education. You have someone holding you accountable, and you want to learn these things. But for someone like me, man, like I said, like I shouldn't have been there. I just wanted to hang out with my friends, and I'm glad that I made the relationships that I made while I was at college. But man, like I just shouldn't have I
One
shouldn't have been there. It put me in like tens of thousands of dollars in the hole,
yeah.
um, for something, yeah, I shouldn't have been a part of. But go ahead.
And one thing that I really, have an issue with like our society is how a college degree has become just like a filter for employers. Like now there's so many people with college degrees, that it's just like they just press it's like pressing a filter button, where it's just like you filter all the things like just people with degrees versus people without degrees.
Hmm.
And the people with degrees are more valuable, just because they've proved. And I mean, in a sense, like sure, like if you go like in the long run, or I guess in the aggregate, people that go through a 4-year school, they do show at least some capability, of like being able to, do assignments and like, execute tasks and like work with, people around them. Um, but first of all, it's so easy to get through, some colleges and a lot of classes by doing the bare minimum,
I don't know how
Um,
I passed high school. I I'm serious. I don't remember trying once. I smoked a lot of weed, and I never really cared about any class I took, and I passed and I graduated. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
So, anyways, I just think I find a big issue with that, where it's just like a filter system. But on the opposite side of that, if there's a job that you really want and like you can see yourself doing, in the long term, and it requires a college degree, then of course go for it. Like anyone in like, nursing or the medical field or the sciences, or like even if you want to start your own business, like going to business school is a great idea.
Mhm.
But if you're just getting a business administration degree because you have no idea what you want to do with your life, it's like you just flushed like 100 grand down the toilet, in my opinion. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't want my doctor to have learned everything on YouTube. Like, YouTube's a great source, but it's like I don't want my physical therapist to be like, "Yeah, I just learned this yesterday, actually." It's like, "No, I
Hmm.
want you to go through a heavy schooling system before you start doing anything with my body." Um, yeah, dude, I mean, we can go on and on about this. I think the to bring it home for me, like how I always try to conclude this. Sorry, trying to get some good lighting in here. Um, I always try to bring it home with like I don't think college is bad. I just think it's not great to be the norm. Like it can't be what is pushed upon
Hmm.
people. It can't be like, well, you gotta go. I mean, you gotta go to college.
Hmm.
Why? Well, because you got. I mean, you gotta. What you got? What else are you gonna do? Um, Having said that, it's no. Um, you have to at a base. You have to have like work ethic. You have to have clearly defined principles and values. Like you have to care about actually getting things done for yourself.
Hmm.
Um, I guess all that I would say is the way to do that does not have to be a university, a college system. Like if you want to do that on your own, um, it's going to be difficult in different ways, especially for different people. But if you want to like graduate high school, not go to college, and just start learning about business and like creating a business for yourself, like if you work your ass off, you can get it done, man. Like you can do some incredible things on your own with the
Hmm.
power of the internet. Like the internet, it's endless information,
Hmm.
and it's difficult and overwhelming to kind of process through it. But if you can, it saves you tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, but you have to have a base. You have to have
Hmm.
a solid base of wanting to actually provide for yourself and live a life that's worth living. Um,
Agreed.
so anyway, Um, did you have a you had a second,
Um,
thing you found overrated?
I do have a second part to that question. And this part is honestly like pretty uncomfortable for me to talk about. But it is something that I feel like pretty strongly about. So, um, and I'll describe it as the generation, the culture of our generation as like the hookup culture,
Mhm,
or like the some people would call it like the speed dating, culture or something like that. Um, and for a reason, like I just think it's overrated in the sense that like physical interaction it's reduced to just like a transaction. Like it's literally just like a transaction from one body to another. And I just think like there's a lot, more, that should be there, between those two people. And I know it's a very like traditional, way of thinking about it. I was raised, very traditionally, but
mhm.
um, I just think that it's just the culture that we have. People literally ask me before. It's like, so you're saying like if a solid 10 like walked up to you and like wanted to fuck you right now, you wouldn't do it? And if I say no, they're like, dude, what are you like? What what do you even like girls? Do you like that type of thing? Like
Mm,
it's crazy. So, but the answer is no. Like I seriously, would not. And um I just look for like a much stronger, attraction, but like more obviously more than just like physical attraction. And I think like there's a huge lack of those types of people in our world now, where it's like the culture is all shifted to, like I said, just like a physical transaction. And I just think it should be, a lot more than that, in my opinion.
yeah, dude, it sounds like I'm just agreeing with everything my guests say, but I couldn't agree more. It's an oversimplified way to think about it, but I've always been mind blown at the fact that the way it used to be was you meet somebody, then you go on a date with them to see if they uh, to see if you have chemistry enough to have sex. Now you meet someone, have sex to see if you would have chemistry enough to go on a date with them.
Hmm.
So it's totally backwards.
Yep,
And
I
yeah,
agree.
man, it's crazy, and you have to consider, like times change and cultures change, and values change, like the norms kind of change, but that definitely doesn't mean that it has to be a certain way. And in the long run, it's just not sustainable.
Hmm.
You're totally right. It's just not sustainable. And you know, when I was a young chap, uh, I had different values, and I had my time where all I cared about was just like going out and having fun and meeting girls and doing whatever. And then, yeah, you just hit a certain point. Uh, some people later than others, some people not at all. But yeah, you hit a certain point. I did at least where I was like, man, I if I can't have an interesting conversation with a girl that I meet, then I'm like the attraction is just gone.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like there's just no real thought. It doesn't matter how beautiful she is, how how appealing she is physically. Um, like if I don't enjoy standing next to her and talking to her, then it's all of
Hmm.
that is just deflated.
Yeah. And I'll go even a step further is that, a lot of people, even if people aren't, like all about just like constantly, hooking up with each other and they are looking for a connection, a lot of times they're looking for the wrong things.
Mm,
And, one thing that first of all, I have to say, like, I'm very grateful that I had the parents that I had. I believe like they really raised me, well with a, solid set of values, and values is what's most important. So, in my opinion, you want to be looking for someone with common values to yourself, or similar values, not just like surface level interests. While like music genre, your music taste, and what food you like, and like all that stuff is, it is important, in ways of, and of course, like, you want to find commonalities there. But what's much more important for like a long term relationship to last is like having common values, with somebody. Um, and that's a lot more difficult to find, depending on what values you have. But um, it's worth I think it's worth the wait, and it's worth the search.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's crazy. I was talking to Michael Boyland yesterday about how impressive, I don't know, it's brought up in the big meetings, especially for you. So I'm sure you get sick of it. And I was telling him, you know, a- age is not, age doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter how young you are when you have certain wisdoms or certain capabilities. But it is at the same time impressive. Like, that's a very wise thing that I think will, you mentioned earlier, you get kind of uncomfortable maybe in the short term when people question your take on that, so what we're talking about. But in the
Mhm,
long run, like, that's going to provide you with such, with a much more happier life and outcome, because if you meet someone and you're with them for 15 years, you know that you started off with the strongest possible root or the strongest possible base. It wasn't just like, yeah, she was really funny and she was really attractive when we met, and then we've been together ever since.
mhm,
Um, and of course, everyone's different. Everyone has different things that are important to them. But yeah, it's almost the same as what we were talking about with college. You have to start. It's values and principles, and once you have to define them very clearly and articulately. I'm not sure if that's a word. You have to be very clear with what's important to you and what your values are, so that way you can correspond with somebody else, and they can change, but you want to make sure that they're changing for the right reasons. Anyway,
mhm.
well put, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I have, that is something I put a lot of thought into.
Hmm. um Last question, James.
Cool.
What um what is what's a traumatic event, something that you wouldn't wish to repeat, that has significantly impacted your life for the better?
For this question, I have to preface that, like, obviously it was a traumatic event, so there was like lots of negative ways that it impacted my life.
Of course.
Um, but this is kind of like, looking for the silver lining and everything, which is why, I think this is a great question. But this is a pretty easy one for me. It's that, my mom passed away when I was 12. So
Mhm.
it was like a surprise. It was sudden. We didn't see it coming. Of course, I was 12 years old. As I mentioned earlier, I was a mama's boy. So like, completely flipped my world upside down at the time. So like, and it took a long time for me to find a new normal. How I would put it. Um, and I have to, anyone who most people, anyone who's watching this probably knows me from work, and I talk about my dad all the time.
Mhm.
And it's because, for a lot of reasons, but he was a single parent for, from when I was 12, until, I like 18 when I left the house, and he was doing everything. Like, he was working a very demanding job, trying to keep the house, and like keep supporting my brothers who were in college. Paying He paid for most of their college and mine, um, and like also providing for all of my needs. Like my food, my um, obviously 12 through 18. Like, I'm not supporting myself. Um, so I have to shout out my dad before I go any further. Just for being an incredible, like driving me to to friends' houses like every weekend. Like he's a working man. He doesn't want to be driving, like being my chauffeur, but he still did it. Um, but there were a lot of positives that did come out, and it really has made me the person I am today in a lot of ways. Just the fact that I did like grow up pretty fast. I was also kind of a single child. Well, not really, but um, right when I was 12 is also when both of my brothers left the house. So both of my brothers were either in college or out of college, and I was just like in the house alone with my dad. And I would come home from school and he wouldn't be there. So I just like had my own. I was on my own for like meals and um, just in general. I think it forced me to grow up a little bit faster. And I did a lot of maturing in that time. But like after the traumatic event, I started maturing a lot faster, and um, it also provided a lot of resilience. I learned what it's like to deal with loss. I learned how to deal with it. Luckily my dad put me into therapy, for a little while, and that like helped me learn how to cope, with stress and with depression, anxiety, and all that stuff. Um, so a lot of skills that I learned, after that experience, along with the maturity, and I'd say like those are probably the biggest things, that have made me who I am. Um, from that experience, and also I would say um, it was kind of, and this isn't a knock against my mom at all, obviously, but she was a bit of a helicopter parent. She was like, I was a mama's boy, and she was like, trying to control like which friends I'm hanging out with, and like, all the aspects of my life.
He can drink out of
Um,
the baby's bottle if he wants to.
exactly, exactly. So obviously, I had a lot more freedom after that, and along with the maturity, I was also able to, uh, in my freedom, I was able to make more mistakes, and I was
Mm.
able to, make bad decisions, when I was that age, and learn from them, and like that's the difference is that, my dad always has taught me that, life is all about the choices that you make, so choose wisely. And if you make a bad decision, then learn from it. So all of the decisions that I made, in high school, I made a lot of bad decisions in high school, and in college, really. But I've dedicated myself to learn from those mistakes. And had my mother, still been with me through my high school experience, I probably would not have been making those bad decisions or those nearly as many mistakes.
Mhm.
And of course, there's like pros and cons to everything. You know what I mean? But those experiences are what have made me, who I am today. And just my ability to, I think, connect with people, even like in the store, on a daily basis. Um, like a lot of the experiences that I've been through enable me to connect with people in a genuine way. And I'm very grateful for having those experiences, if that makes any sense.
It really does, man. That's beautiful. We kind of touched on loss in yesterday's episode with Mike,
Hmm.
and he mentioned that he was really lucky that he hasn't experienced, severe loss in his life, and I'm the same way. Um, it's I don't know if it's controversial. It's kind of if it's weird to kind of talk about the positives of experiencing horrible loss at a young
Right.
age. But I do think in general, like everything you just said sort of confirms how I've how I've felt about it for a while, which is at a young age, if you experience, something just horribly tragic, like you yourself, as awful as it is, and it's there's nothing that can really put it into words, like what the experience is like. But it provides you with, I would argue, the most valuable insight that a human can have, which is our time's limited here. Like,
Mm,
life does not go on forever. And I only say that that's the most important thing because even if you go through something like that, enough time passes and we sort of get caught in this routine where each day we really do act as if we will live forever. Like,
mhm,
if you actually understood and you knew constantly that you were going to die someday and everybody you love and have ever met will die someday, why would you get annoyed at this stupid little thing? Why would you
right,
not try your hardest to give your all to a relationship you know matters? Why would you not, try to live the best life that you can right now? If it all goes away, if whether you believe in an afterlife or not, like if this what we're doing right now, if this all just goes away, why are we not working tirelessly to make sure that we are appreciating every moment and we are developing the most loving and meaningful relationships with the people that we know, because it's not going to last. Why aren't we trying our hearts out
yeah.
to make this time, this limited time, as amazing as it can be?
Dude, I love that, man, and I think you're talking about, in shorter words, like, making sure you're putting everything in perspective on a consistent basis, so not just, like, once a month, you're like, "Oh, man, yeah, I might die someday, that's pretty crazy." It's and, one thing that I do that or one way that I do that, and I've talked a lot about this with my teams, is that, um, you can do it in your goal setting. So, one of the things that I like to one of the mental exercises that I like to run is imagining, kind of looking down on your life from different views. So, for instance, like if you want to accomplish something by the end of the week, that's kind of a rooftop view. It's like you're sitting on top of a rooftop, looking down at James LaLone's life, or looking down at Dylan Taylor's life, and you can see out, just like a week. Um, and then if you want to accomplish something, or if you want to, I mean, obviously accomplishing things is mostly what we do in goal setting, but it can also be, a variety of other things. But if there's anything you want to do in maybe a 3 month time or a 6 month time, maybe that's like more of a bird's eye view of your life. And then you go up to a year or 5 years, and maybe that's kind of like an airplane, way up. But what you're talking about is what I would call the rocket ship view, or
Mm,
setting rocket ship goals. And it's different than a bucket list. It's different than just saying like, oh, I want to do this before I die. It's kind of like looking at your life, from like the absolute highest point that you can get, and looking down and seeing like, what can I do now to get myself closer to that goal that I want to achieve by 70 or by 80. It's different than saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this one day before I die." It's saying like, "What can I do now to get closer to achieving that goal?" So that's exactly what you're talking about. Is like, maybe one of your goals is to truly forgive everybody in your life. And it's like that's a lifelong commitment. That's not just like I'm going to do that one day. That's like, I want when I die, I want to have like no one in my life that I have not forgiven, or no one in my life that I still have a grudge towards. And that takes effort on your part. Like, you're the one they're not going to reach out to you and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, please forgive me." You know, Like you reach out to them, and maybe you have to apologize first, even if you don't feel it, but like whatever the case may be, like repairing the relationships, in your life, like you said, if you know that it's an important relationship, um, then just reach out. And the worst thing that they're gonna say is, or just hang up on you or something. Of course, it's a two-way street, but I think it's important to always, and oh yeah, and the last part of my point is to write it down. So
Hmm.
just as simple as, I actually have, in my bathroom, uh, I have it's like construction paper with, it says rocket ship goals on it, and it's just a list of like 8 or 9 things, that I have compiled that I want to fulfill, and to work towards my entire life. So for instance, one of them, and this kind of goes back to my one of my earlier points. One of them is that uh, I want to be the best person for my future spouse.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense. Or I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it's like I want to be the right person. I want to be, the person that is going to attract, the right person for me. I don't know if I said I don't know if I said that right, but I think you get the point. So like making sure to put your life in different, like that's a really unique perspective that a lot of people don't think about. And I wasn't the one that thought of that. I read about it and I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be the right person for my future spouse. So making sure that you're consistently putting your life in that perspective, and like kind of taking that rocket ship or like 30,000 foot view look at your life, and it makes you it's inspiring to do things now. It inspires you to do things now rather than waiting, another month or two, or a year or whatever.
Dude, yeah, it's incredible. You and I had a conversation a few days ago on the phone about this stupid, simple, subtle realization that I had, which was, what constitutes a person? It has to be what they do consistently, which
Right.
is
You talked
every.
about that on the podcast yesterday too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I keep reverting back, but we. I don't know. It's the curse of having like-minded individuals at the place that you work. But yeah, like you're not a good person if you're really good for a day. You're a good person if you constantly do things to help other people and you're respectful and you're kind and you listen to people and you're interested in what they have to say, and it's reciprocated and so on and so forth. You can go down that hole, but um I don't know if this is a perfect segue into uh after what you just laid out, because it was beautiful. But one thing that I think this quarantine that we're going through right now really shows us is, and it's actually what makes power so special, when you have nothing, like if you just have confinement, you're just stuck in your house, you're stuck in your room, things can be a lot worse. But it's like, what do you really have? And right now, to bring it back to what I opened with, like, yeah, you, James LaLone, your numbers are great. You're very good at your job. You're very good at what you do here at Power, for multiple reasons. But right now, it's like, what do you have? You don't have, you know, a number at a leaderboard. You don't have like how many estimates you can get as of right now. And of course, like, yeah, that has led to the amount of money you have. Like, without going down that side,
Sure.
what do we all have right now? We have the relationships that we have with people. Like, you and I can do this because, I mean, hopefully you don't hate me and I don't hate you. Like, we've had enough positive, back and forths to the point where we trust each other enough to do this. And you trust Miriam to give her a call, and like it's all about just the relationships that you have with other people. Michael Boylan said it yesterday. At the end of the day, like when you die, you're not remembered really from your accolades, unless it's in a history book or something. You're remembered by what people think and what people say about you when you're gone. And that has to do with the connection that you have with people.
Mhm.
And it's another one of those opportunities that I think we can take from this quarantine. It's like, what are your connections like? Can you build better connections? Is
Mhm.
now the time to, you know, build them up and make them stronger? Um, and I think power is great because, man, we all have so many people to talk to every day. Like we can all call 10 people at Power and just start talking. And they're like, yeah, what's up? You don't even have to know them. Say, yeah, what's up, dude? Sure. Yeah, tell me what's going on. Here's what's going on with me. Well, what do you think? You know,
Mhm.
that's something that, it lasts forever. So I don't know if that was the best segue to bring it on home, but um I'm really like, without getting super cheesy, I'm happy that we can do this.
Mhm.
I appreciate that you would come on and do this, and your career is probably over now that you're associated with me. Um, so whoever's watching, I forced James to do this. But yeah, man, you're a phenomenal person. You're very good at what you do, and you're very humble about it, which is striking. I think that's another cool thing about Power. It's like the people who are the best at what they do seem to be the people who are, you know, who least want to talk about how well they're doing. Like the people who care the least about making sure other people know how well they're doing. And you do it every day. You are what you do consistently, and you consistently call your team and reach out to them and make sure that they're taking care of their shit. For anybody watching, we're all talking about finances. James literally, like, kind of aggressively shoved a budgeting article onto our team, and it's like, yeah, we're going to sit down and talk about this, and we're going to talk about your budgeting, and be prepared. I'm going to be prepared. Make sure that you're prepared. And we were all like, okay, shit, Jesus, all right, fine. But like, that's awesome. Like, it's a little scary, but to have someone, again, we were talking about it with Michael Boylan yesterday, but to have people who just like shove down your throat how much they care about you taking care of yourself, it makes you really want to fucking take care of yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've been talking for way too long, James.
Dude, you've been gassing me up, man. I really do appreciate it. But it is. I have a lot of people to thank, for where I am today. Um, and you're one of them, man. You keep doing what you're doing, man. You're a big part of Power now. A big part of Maryland, the Maryland office.
That's right. Hear that, everybody? I'm coming.
He's coming up, man. He's on the rise.
No, dude, I love this. I love you. Thank you. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate you.